Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Localize the World podcast. I'm joined here today with Stas Kharevich from Alconost, and he'll be talking to us about product localization. So, Stas, why don't you take it away?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. It's very nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me to this podcast. It's been a while. I had an opportunity to talk live to somebody about localization, so I'm going to enjoy this one too. I'm Stas. I'm from Alconost. My role is I'm the head of localization team here. Our core business is helping other companies worldwide to localize their content, to be able to sell more products, items, to generate, also doing video production. So in other words, we make videos for whatever reason, for whatever purpose. But I'm in charge of localization. So here I am, going to answer the questions that you have.
Yes, I have so many. Well, thank you so much for your intro. Today, our topic is about how to localize products from the beginning. Say you're like a new product manager from um, a US-based company or a Lithuanian-based company, right? Is where you're from.
Yep.
And you're trying to go global, or you're trying to go into another country. Oh, did you want to say something?
Alconost is originally a US-based company, but the team is scattered all over the world. So yeah.
And that's where you're based right now.
No, I'm from
Gotcha.
Lithuania, but the company is in the US, but it doesn't really matter. You can be a
Okay.
product manager regardless of the location.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, thank you for clarifying that. But anyways, like say you're starting up from the ground up, right? When is the right time to start localizing your product? Is it always from the beginning, or
Uh,
or does it depend on the context?
uh, well, of course, the general answer would be you have to start it from the very beginning, but localization actually starts with your content. So basically, if you don't have the content, there is nothing to localize. And so technically, and that's why technically localization starts from the beginning, because when you start creating your content, but basically, whenever this idea of creating a product which has some content springs to your mind, that's about the right time you start thinking about localizing it. Because the whole concept is having a localization strategy before you start doing something, before you start even thinking of the next steps or about your development plan, whatever. Because localization is an integral part of the development process in terms of the product. So it and it all revolves around your content. So first of all, you need to decide which content you are going to generate.
Mhm.
It's highly crucial to maybe to break it down into content types, because each content type would serve its purpose. And from then on, you will decide to prioritize how you prioritize the content. And it will have an impact on how you localize the content, or you don't even want to localize it. So you need to decide on what content, who generates this content, where do you generate it, where you store this content. In other words, you need to come up with a repository, a content management system to make sure it can integrate well with other platforms and services. So you have to decide on the content plan, and that's really a bottleneck when you're talking to customers. Most of them, they don't have the content plan, so it happens.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
Like that's the majority, I think.
Yeah. And from then on, you probably have some marketing guy or marketing team that will help you identify the markets. So you will decide on the languages that you are going to localize this content. And again, there will be a priority list of languages. Maybe some of them will require immediate localization. Some of them will just not use any translation at all, and the English source will suffice. So it really depends, really case by case situation. And then development cycle. So you need to understand how frequent you're going to release the product. And again, do you really need to localize each time before you release it? So this is a whole content or localization or whatever, it's strategy, and you need to think it over. And after that, so once you're like finished with the content strategy, you can understand a little bit more about the localization in terms of who's going to localize it. So who are the guys that are going to translate my content? Where they're going to do that? So I need to select a language management system where the whole process takes place. I need to make sure it integrates with my repository, with my content management, whatever it might be. I need to decide who is going to manage the process, because the management the management overhead is very important, and on top of that, how to make it automatic, how to make it repeatable in the long term. So mm, you need so it's not about the beginning of the project. It's not about the middle or the end of the project. It's just about the concept that you need to think about it just before you even started thinking about the content itself.
Wow. That's a lot for a new
Yeah.
product manager in or a product manager who's just maybe beginning to learn about localization, right? And so I think that's one of the things that is overlooked, right? How do I even begin to plan out my content management strategy beyond the one language that we're already in? Say you already have a product, right?
Yep.
I have an example here of a real life scenario where, like this person, they look for a startup, they work for a startup, and they're looking to move into international markets. Uh, they need to localize their app, but it's the first time they've heard of localization as a word
Hmm.
itself. They're looking into products like Localize JS or SmartLing. These are like TMS's, translation management systems that
Hmm.
we've been talking about. And they're literally just Googling how to localize a mobile app.
Yep.
Where would this person start, Stas?
Well, a very good starting point is just go outside, Google something, or ask your ChatGPT assistant, whatever.
Yes.
Uh, uh, so, okay, let's narrow it down mm, to a certain situation. Just picture you're running a startup. So, mm, there are. It's all about the resources that you have to consider. So, like you have people, you have budgets, and you have the time. So, in the majority of cases, based on my experience, most startups they're very limited on people and budget. Let's suppose
Yes.
that they have the time so to do this research, and I would strongly recommend to go out there, because there is a bunch. There are plenty of technologies, tools, and whole ecosystems that were designed and built around those localization tools. Most of them mm, are free. In other words, they offer some free starting plans that are really literally free, just to start up, join in, and start trying out something. And I would strongly recommend um, to test it yourself, because based on the requirements, based on your infrastructure, on the tools that you're already using, you will be able to test out and select the best performing platform or a tool, or a combination of tools. A different situation might happen, and at least you will be able to understand the basics of the localization pipeline, of the workflow that you are going to build. Because why it matters. Uh, Outsourcing is very simple. You don't really have to worry about the process, about the requirements, how to manage the content, how to hire translators, how to do quality assurance, and stuff like that. But again, mm, and it's not even the matter of the budget. Even suppose you have the budget to do it, to outsource it fully, it's always good to have a certain localization maturity. So a maturity level matters. And if you know at
What
least the
is
basics,
localization maturity?
uh, this is your knowledge and experience that you gained to build your own localization pipeline. So maybe you know exactly how to integrate your content management system with the tools, with the language management system. So you know exactly how it works and what it takes. And if it breaks or something bad happens, you know exactly how to fix it or where to go uh, to do the job. You know exactly what stages do you have in your localization workflow. So, for example, you might have a content generation stage, then you have a moderation stage, then you would have a translation stage. At this, for example, it all revolves around machine translation and AI translation at the moment. So that will be very good to run out certain tests to identify maybe you can have machine translation first, and then you will have it post-edited by human translators, or uh, it depends on the content specifics, or you would rather have human translation with no machine translation, with no AI assistance. And so building this kind of pipeline uh, helps you to understand what exactly you need to outsource and what exactly you need. Maybe you will be able to do the localization in-house with no other vendor helping you down the road. And you don't really need Localize, SmartLink, Alconost, whatever. Or you will hire them exactly to cover exactly this or that phase of your pipeline. So that's why I would generally recommend to try it out yourself and then maybe go out and ask somebody to help you, or maybe to give you a piece of advice, like a suggestion, maybe some consulting sort of stuff.
Nice. I find that maybe a lot of companies, the hard part that they have with starting to localize a company is figuring out maybe after the fact, after they've researched a couple of vendors or like tested it out themselves, is that their content itself is not ready to be localized, or
Yeah,
maybe it's not in the right format, right? Or maybe
sure,
it's garbled up, or there's
exactly.
no good like governance around their content. How does one approach that issue?
Well, the best case is to think about there is a word, there is a term called internationalization, which is similar to localization, just a bit more words than that. So the internationalization is basically the process of making your product uh, localization friendly, so localization ready. To do that, you just need to make sure that it complies with the local requirements, with the local formats, uh, date, time, currency. You need to make sure that your product supports the necessary fonts, the layouts and stuff like that. So the best way is maybe to do machine translation, to build a test version of the product, like a test bundle, and just to test it inside out. And sometimes it doesn't even take a native speaker to understand that there are certain issues with the product. It's not ready for localization, and it needs some careful job and some careful work to make it adaptable, to make it localization friendly. And depending on the languages, depending on the locales that you're going to translate, the list of requirements might vary. Of course, nowadays, all the development frameworks, there are plenty of libraries that help you, that help your product support any localization from the very scratch. But again, you need to test it beforehand, of course.
Mhm. So testing, testing, testing. That is the key.
Well, yeah, I guess most developers, they are very well aware of that.
Yeah. Then an add-on question to that is, when you're expanding your language offerings, when you're localizing, what tasks then do make sense to hand off to a vendor, and what tasks should I keep in-house?
Uh, well, I would say that generally, um, as the company is growing, they tend to outsource more work to vendors. So there are like different types of vendors in terms of localization. There are single language vendor, which is SLV, which means they cover only certain language pair. But still, this can still be a company. So this is not a freelance translator. This is a company, but they're supporting only one language pair. So they're called single language vendors. There are MLVs, who are actually multi-language vendors. So they're supporting a range of languages. And as the company is growing, again, from my observations, from my experience, they tend to outsource more. A very good example is the Spotify. So they currently they're supporting around 70 languages, and the model that they're sustaining is outsourcing to vendors. So they don't really have an in-house team. They are outsourcing the whole content. But at the same time, what I would keep in-house is the localization managers who would be in charge of managing the whole process, the pipeline and the workflow that we were talking about. So they will be in charge of the rules and requirements that they will be sending to the vendor. They will be in charge of content generation and content management. And maybe I would have just a small team of QA managers. So those will be in charge of doing quality assurance. In other words, they will be in charge of linguistic quality, testing. So this is supposed to be the last phase before the product is published, is released. So it's better to have this kind of management in-house. But the whole other process, like who translates what time, task management, translators, internal quality assurance, the best case scenario is to outsource to the vendor.
And what about the internationalization stuff that you talked about earlier? Is that something that you can outsource to vendors?
Mm, no, internationalization is the work that you need to do inside the development team. So of course you can outsource anything, but I prefer to keep control. And again, it's best to keep this very level of control in-house.
Yeah, okay. So controlling your actual content, that is best stayed in-house, of course.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
then getting that content translated, reviewed, QA'd, that's all something that can be outsourced, no
that's
problem.
right. And again, on top of
Yeah.
that, before publishing the product, before there's any new release, you need to have this kind of QA team just to do some final QA checkups to make sure everything is place, everything is okay, and we're ready to get published.
Linguistic quality, you mean? Or just general QA
Uh,
of the
no,
product?
no functional QA, but some linguistic QA. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Um, Another question that we had was like, what parts of the actual product should absolutely be professionally translated? Because you
Mm,
talked about machine translation or like different pipelines where you can include maybe half machine or like someone
mm-hmm.
who's post editing that content. What content should absolutely be looked at by a human 100%?
Mm, well, again, it pretty much depends on the volume. So maybe the first thing I would say is the volume, because if it's just about a few thousand words, it doesn't hurt to translate it by human translation. So we just get the translators, and mm, uh, it's very convenient. It's very fast, and usually doesn't take much time. Mm, but again, if you have like a few 100,000 words in your project and you're going to have more content to be updated, that's a different story. So what you need to think about is content profiling. So once you generate the content, it's not only about the actual content, but about the content profile, a content type, because like I said, each content type has its own purpose. And depending on this purpose, you can prioritize the content. And then you can understand which workflow or which pipeline you can apply to this or that content type. So, for example, it's nowadays it's popular to divide the content by visibility. So it's high visibility or medium visibility or low visibility, and this way you can prioritize the content. So it's natural, obviously, that high visibility content gets much attention. It influences your retention, user acquisitions, other product metrics. So you need to really focus on the quality. And that's why it's best, and I recommend it also, to use human translation for this content. What content types? So the examples would be user interface, obviously, your website, especially just the front end of your website. This is the face of the product. All your marketing and promo ads, maybe some user education, user onboarding. So this is the first content that the user is going to see. And that's why it's highly crucial to translate it 100% correctly. Medium content would be something like your blog posts, your marketing maybe posts, maybe some web pages with lower visibility. And for that, you might apply machine translation post editing. In other words, you have the machine translate your content first, and then you have post editors doing the proofreading, some tweaks, updates, the necessary corrections. And low visibility might be something that refers to your internal help desk, internal maybe documentations, knowledge bases, something about technical or service messages that users don't actually interact very often. So, and for that, we might apply even automated post editing. So this is the process when you have one AI doing the translation job, and the other one, it might be a different AI provider doing the proofreading job. So it's like a workflow with no human in the middle. There's just one lock engineer taking care of the setup, maintenance, but the whole job is taken care of by the machine. It doesn't mean that the output quality would be poor. No, again, it's the job of localization provider, just like we do. So for some of our projects, we set up this kind of workflow and we make sure that the output quality is decent. So it doesn't necessarily have to be poor. But of course, as compared to human translation from the very scratch, there will be a difference. But for the content with low visibility index, with low priority, that's absolutely okay to go in for automated post editing. And that's what it's all about. And that's why you need this content profiling from the very start.
So profile your content based on maybe visibility or like how high of a priority is it for the company to get this right the first time.
Yeah.
I was thinking also about legal content. I mean, you don't think of it often in like product localization, but it is a part of some workflows, right? Like your DNCs, working for a fintech company, like that's a huge thing, right? Making sure that our legal contracts are translated. So in those cases, that would be definitely going to uh, a translator, right?
I would say yes, maybe a few years ago. There was a conference and the people were saying quite the same thing, that medical translation, legal translation, they're not prone and they're not subject to changes because of AI, just because of the accuracy they need to maintain. But I'm not a legal translator, and I don't deal with legal projects. But from what I read and from what I know, AI have been doing just not great, but very good in that subject field too. So let's say plain MTP would be quite efficient for legal documents as well, especially for mm, mm, for the template-based legal documents. I mean, those documents that are not being changed very much over the time, just some maybe in some passages or some wording might be different. And that's why LLMs, they already know how to translate it. And that's why it takes just some light edits from the human, and that's it.
Oh, well, that's pretty interesting. I didn't know that. So
But
technology is definitely
yeah,
advancing
yeah.
at a rapid pace.
Well, yeah, but definitely. But there is just one comment I would like to add. Speaking of AI and
Yeah.
technologies and all these trends, so the content is what you really need to focus on, and the second aspect would be, especially if you're going or if you're already using AI LLMs and you're building workflows, AI-based workflows. The second aspect would be the context, because the context is the key. 100%. So regardless of the localization strategy, context is just everything, especially if you're using AI, because it might be your worst nightmare or it might be your savior. Because if you give AI the context and you're feeding the context all the time on a regular basis, in other words, you have very explicit and clear style guides for your product, for your localization project. If you have your glossary updated on a regular basis, translation memories, any kind of references which you are going to feed your model, altogether it works just great.
Okay, so what if my company had a Claude account and then I just fed all of that in that style guide, the knowledge base
Mhm.
into Claude, and I told it, hey, I have these strings in a JSON format, translate them for me in whatever languages. Could that be uh, a localization plan?
Sure. That would be your uh, starting point. This would be your first localization workflow, which might be quite sustainable as long as you support this context-based format. So you're generally feeding the context. Maybe for every single string, there is a small piece of context, just so that just not only LLMs, the log manager, the QA tester, the translator, they will be able to understand what it's all about. So, and if you treat your localization project this way, um, it will be the success, regardless of the localization flow.
Okay. So I have a plan, you mean? I could just put everything through AI with
Well,
lots of cons, probably.
it's not that, it's not that
It's
simple.
not
It's not
that
that
simple.
easy. Yeah, yeah. That's why it takes a log engineer or maybe a team of log guys to set up the whole process. I mean, from the technical perspective, because again, that's like a different kind of project. So you can set up a human translation project, and that's one thing. But AI-based project is a different story, but still it requires expertise and knowledge, and of course the tools.
Mhm.
So if you don't really know how it works, or you don't really know the differences, the characteristics, if you're not familiar with some basic programming, it takes either time or money or other people to be involved to set it all up. And again, you need to generate the context. At the end of the day, you still have the problem of content profiling, context generation. You need to maintain the process because LLMs, they make mistakes not only in translation but also in administration. If you have AI agent doing some job, it still might fall through cracks, and anything can happen. So you need
Yeah.
maintenance guys.
I say it as a jest, but we have seen, or I have seen a team where they just put all their content through Claude without the context that you were mentioning. And when we reviewed it with a linguist, they said they couldn't continue reviewing because it was just so many changes to make, right? And I think to do it really right, if you want to really have a AI um, translation workflow, you have to have that right context, and that takes that could be a full-time job, right?
Sure.
Preparing all of the right materials and retraining and reviewing that content always.
100% sure, and agree with you because, just for example, the first thing that we start with is we are trying to evaluate the machine translations, the machine translators. I mean, neural machine translation systems like DeepL, for example. There are fewer providers, but still, there are some like DeepL, for example. Google Translate, but it's replaced by Gemini definitely. And we're trying to evaluate those AI providers like LLMs, Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT. Those are one of the providers, and each provider has about 5 working models. So you have like 15 different models that you are evaluating before starting the project, and you're also doing quality spot checks because the models are evolving all the time. So let's say we're using Claude for this language pair, and it's really the best AI model, but that's for the moment. But you need to do this spot check not next month or maybe next quarter because the situation might be different, and you will need to connect a different AI provider because it got better over that time. So a number of things to do to take care of. This is just a different list from the human translation project.
Okay. So what I'm thinking is, if I was a product manager starting to localize my product, I'd probably just hire a localization manager to deal with all of this. Um, all right.
Well,
I've got. Go ahead.
no, well, it depends on a case because some of our customers, again, they have a team of lock managers who were mostly doing the administrative job. But
Hmm.
still, I see this kind of trend that they're trying to improve, to upgrade the localization maturity. So they're trying to get interested into the things that they're not really supposed to do. But again, they're trying to know something new. At least we're telling them how it works, and they know what they're paying for. Because if you're just like hiding everything behind your back and hide it in the background, mm, you're not building trust. So you're using customer loyalty, and that's why we're trying to educate, to show, to share as many details and information as possible.
Hmm.
So, uh, well, I'm saying that lock managers are getting smarter too, and they don't simply outsource everything.
I see. With the smaller companies that you work with, what are some challenges they've faced when, either onboarding to a new translation system or, starting to work with you as a vendor? What are some like hurdles you think they've faced over the times?
You mean smaller companies, right?
Yeah, smaller companies.
Uh, well, smaller companies, the product companies, mm, well, they got a very rare, a unique opportunity to build their own localization pipelines with no vendors, with no language provider, and that's really a unique opportunity, which started about maybe 2 years ago. But at the same time, I would say even if you're able to build up your own localization strategy and pipeline, it's still about quality assurance. So that's the major, not maybe the hurdle, but that's the task, that's the challenge that you need
Mhm.
to take. And maybe for this job, you need somebody to outsource, you need somebody to take care of QA, at least maybe not even to review and proofread every single string in your content, but at least to do some maybe spot checks, to do some LQT, linguistic quality testing, or some random quality assurance, but just to make sure that you're on the right track using your workflow.
Okay.
And that's what we are offering to mostly small and medium-sized companies. So at least if you are able to translate your content yourself, that's okay. You did a good job. But at least let us do some quality assurance. And we're also developing a number of tools, our proprietary tools, that help people to estimate quality, to do some annotations, to do pre-translation, to do quality, to do LLM evaluation. So those will be the tools that you will be using, for example, free of charge, or maybe that will be a pay-as-you-go model, whatever. But so you don't need a localization service from Alconost, but you can still be using our tools to to make sure that you're delivering good quality to your users.
Okay. So, speaking of which, when you're looking for a trusted localization company to hand off certain work to, what should a product owner or developer be looking out for?
Mm, well, I would say that's definitely company background, a portfolio, maybe the pricing. But to be honest, I would say that if I were a project manager, uh, uh, I would focus on how well the localization company can fit into my existing localization workflow, uh, how it can uh, how can it adjust to the regulations that I already have in place to my requirements. Maybe they're able to suggest something different, which might be more efficient than what I already have. Their ability to ask the right questions, and that shows how well they can dive into all the details to understand the inside out part of the process. And the only way to do that, again, from my experience, is to run as many test or pilot projects as necessary. So, for example, you're selecting between 5 language service providers. So, in terms of rates, their portfolio and background, they're quite equal, and you need to select only one. And I would run maybe a few pilot projects, depending again on the content type that I have. Suppose I have 2 content types, I would run 2 pilot projects with each service provider. Of course, it's going to be time consuming. It's going to take time, but 100% is going to be worth it. And you'll see how they are going to adjust to your existing project requirements. How can they be flexible or not flexible? And it's not only about the translation quality. It's about the ability to adjust, to adapt, to suggest something new. It's about and the turnaround, the translation quality, the pricing, but again, the ability to be flexible, and that's what matters. Because again, at this moment in time, it's all about technologies and tools, and to be able to provide you with, we call it at Alconost, we call it a fit for purpose concept. So we're treating each customer as a custom-based project because all the requirements and the standards, they're different, literally different with each new customer. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to come up with a fit for purpose concept, localization model. If they don't have any model, if they don't have any workflow, we're trying to suggest them a few options. If they have an existing pipeline, that's okay. We are platform agnostic. We're trying to be agnostic in any way, and we're trying just to adapt. And if I were a product manager, that's the concept I would be following. Just running pilot
Mm,
projects and testing how flexible the language provider is.
awesome. All right. I think from what we've discussed today, we have so many places to start. looking for how, how to even begin localization, and we have like a good foundation, right? Always test uh, whatever you're looking at. Always test it. Look into different ways to prioritize your content. Um, think of your actual localization workflow pipeline, how you want it to run, and then what else? Quality assurance. That's another takeaway that I had.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Stas, for coming on today's
Well,
podcast to talk about, how to localize products from the beginning. I have
you
one
are very
last question
welcome.
for you. Thank
Okay,
you.
what is it?
One last question is, how would you say localize the world in your language?
Localize the
And what is
world.
your language, if I could ask?
Uh, well, my native language is Russian, Belarusian. I
Yes.
have two native languages, Belarusian and Russian. Uh, well, as usual, I would go with two. I have two versions of this translation. One version is literal translation, and the second one
Yes.
would be a localized version.
Let's do
Localized,
that. Let's do both.
yes, and I would go with the second option, of course. So, localize the world would be translated to "Сделай мир понятнее."
Okay, I cannot write
Yeah.
that down, so you have to tell me later.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. No problem.
What does it mean?
Well, literally, if we're doing the back translation, it would mean uh, make the world more comprehensive, make the world more clear.
I like that. Awesome. Thank you so much, Stas. It was wonderful talking with you and learning from your experience and how to localize products from the ground up. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as well.
I enjoyed it very much, and thanks to you.